Hey, we're back with 2 more comics to review.
That's right.
Yep.
What a surprise. 2 more. And we already said what they would be.
Yep.
Let's get into
Red
that.
Hood and the Outlaws and Birds of Prey.
Yeah.
So, we started with Red Hood.
We got all the comics this week.
Yeah.
I'm just like, did that really just happen?
True story.
Yeah. Okay, so,
Red Hood and the Outlaws. We have
we
here...
picked a really bad place to film. Worse than McDonald's.
You know, to be honest, I like it here.
Yeah.
We have a story featuring Jason Todd as the Red Hood, Roy Harper as Roy Harper,
And Starfire.
something like that. Now, do we need to go into backstory about who Jason Todd, Roy
Okay,
Harper, and
I'll-
Starfire are? Just like really
I'll
quick.
do it. Okay, so, Jason Todd was the second Robin.
Yeah, he was the second.
Jason Todd was the second Robin.
But he died.
But he died.
Then he came back.
Then he got resurrected, but he came back a bit wrong, a bit crazy in the head. Decided to become the Red Hood.
And
Was kind of an anti-villain.
I
say?
don't know how you would characterize him. Anyway, there
He
was
just kind of works for himself.
there was a big storyline that involved some stuff happening. I heard some criticisms about it.
Yeah.
But anyway, the point is
Death in the
that
family.
the point is no, that was when he died. Under the Red Hood is when he came back.
But it's all, well, anyway.
We're talking about a good like
Okay.
15, 20 years gap. But
Roy Harper.
I'm just going to say the most important thing is that now he wears a red helmet and carries around lots of guns,
Yep.
which
he's
is really
he's kind of a badass. Not as badass as Deathstroke, but he's like a mini Deathstroke, like a teenage Deathstroke.
reminds me a little bit more of Deadshot than Deathstroke. But we're getting into really the mercenaries of the
Yeah.
DCU. Roy Harper.
Is Green Arrow's former sidekick,
Yes.
also known as Speedy. I don't know much about him other than that, actually.
Yeah, I know recently he had some stuff going on with him. I don't know if, I mean, it's not clear entirely how much of Roy Harper's been affected by this reboot. I think, like, last time I checked, I think he had a bionic arm or something, but
Well-
now he's got, like, both his arms, because he says, I need both of my arms to hold this ball and
Yeah.
chain. But, yeah, we'll explain why soon,
And-
so I'm not sure what's going on with that.
And Starfire, I have the least exposure to her. Most of it is from the Teen Titans show, the cartoon, which admittedly was not that good. But she's an alien,
What planet is she from?
Tamarania.
Tamarani.
Yeah,
I think like tamarind, like the fruit.
I guess. Tamarania, whatever. She's a Tamaranian, she's an alien, not used to Earth customs, and she's hot.
The
There.
point, and what we need to know about her for this story, is that she loves sex but hates clothes.
Yep.
So now, do we want to talk just really quick about the plot of this book?
Okay, so the plot. We start with Roy Harper in jail. Well, in army jail.
In Karak.
Yep, which is back after being explodinated.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm trying to remember which country it was that Cheshire killed. It might have been Karak, but now I'm not sure.
Either way,
Also, I will say, just given the fact that this takes place in Karak, I have to think, with Men of War, which takes place in the larger DCU, I noticed that they left it ambiguous what country it takes place in. I have to wonder, does it even take place in a real country? So yeah. He was apparently there to overthrow a totalitarian regime.
he got
Apparently-
captured.
Yeah, well, he didn't get captured, but I think it's that the government that ended up taking over, the rebel government.
Anyway, he
wasn't
got
much
arrested.
better.
He's in jail.
He's in jail,
And he's about to be sentenced to death.
getting his last rites.
Yep.
Because somehow they let in a Catholic priest.
A fat Catholic priest.
Mm-hmm.
Who also just happens to be, boom, Red Hood. They break him out of jail. They meet Starfire along the way. Then they go to a beach resort and have a lot of sex.
Yeah, and we get a bit of exposition in between sex jokes and shots of Starfire being sexy.
There it is. There's exposition.
Yes. Also, apparently, someone uploading sexy pictures of Starfire to the internet is actually a plot point.
Yep.
Oh my.
Comics.
Yeah. See, the way I'm describing it, it sounds really bad.
It's actually a really good comic. That's the thing. A bit light on the story. It's a bit shallow, the comic, but it's fun. It's a fun read. It's kind of like a road trip of comics where you have these guys just breaking out of prison. They're all teenagers or, early 20s maybe, young
Let's
adults.
say, yeah.
Kind
young
of
men,
immature.
young women.
Yeah, kind of immature, having a bunch of sex, making really just banter. I wouldn't say witty banter, but banter. Um, Driving jeeps, making things explode, shooting guns, boom, boom, boom. Yeah.
And apparently, there's a big. I love. I'm not going to give away like what happens toward the second half of the comic, but at the very end, rather than "to be continued," it has a caption that says "to be explained,"
Yeah.
which I think is.
It's very jovial, the comic.
I mean, it's lighthearted. I wouldn't say it's lighthearted the way that, let's say, Justice League International is lighthearted, but I think it's lighthearted in the sense that there's not very much.
It's not
at
afraid to be
stake
immature.
Right here. Yeah, I mean, I think shallow is a word that I used before when we were talking about this. It's shallow. It's also. It's enjoyable, yet at the same time, I think that it's not really giving you much to
Think about
hold on
chew
to, not to think about, and really, I think in terms of, not even necessarily like, oh, let's question the morality of ethics or something, but
It's a popcorn flick, kind of.
but yeah, I think just in terms of like
It's
plot,
a popcorn comic.
Yeah, I mean, there is plot and there is exposition that comes later on that I'm not really going to get into. It develops, but I don't think that in terms of the story of the comic, there's really much to chew on, as you said. But at the same time, I think what works is that even though it's got this real sort of juvenile, adolescent type, I think, attitude to it, just with these characters, I think that Red Hood and Roy Harper do have a very good chemistry with each other. Their caption boxes even have chemistry with each other.
Yeah.
So even though a lot of it is
And they
just,
do have different caption boxes.
yeah. So even though it's a lot of sex jokes, I think that
They work.
I think it works. I think putting the two characters as they're written here, I think it works nicely. I am not going to comment on how this relates to their portrayals in other media or in other series, but just for this book itself, it's I think that works. And we want to talk about the artwork a bit.
I like
first
the art.
page
I like the art
demonstrates-
in some places. Like this is like I think the art's really good here. What other page do
Yeah,
I
it
like?
doesn't change. Just show the big shot of Starfire.
Yeah, I like this page a lot.
Yeah, that's one of two things that
Mm-hmm.
you get. You have, I think, there are two main things. There's one, these just real crumbling scenes where everything's kind of falling apart, because rather than just
And
having lines, you have shapes drawn like little
And that
angular
is
shapes
that's also
inside of
reflected
shapes.
in the panel design. Very avant-garde panel design where you have panels overlapping each other. They're in these weird shapes, not just squares or rectangles. So
At the same time, I'm not really sure that really does anything.
no, I like it though. It kind of reflects that this isn't really serious. It's not. There's no really order or rhythm to it. Just kind of shit happening, breaking all apart.
Yeah, but and also in terms of shading, we don't have
Much.
We don't. No, it's not that we don't have shading. It's that we have, in most places, just little polygons and odd angular shapes
Mhm.
that are shading. So I just find one page where, and I mean it
Whoa.
works.
Like this is completely off style. Like you could see. Okay, look at Starfire's butt here, and then look at like, the two guys, and there's like a total difference of style.
Yeah,
like one's really smooth and the other's all angular and scratchy.
I mean, there are two styles. That one, the guys, that's most of the comic, but there's a special style reserved for Naked Starfire
Yep.
because, yeah, that seems to be what this comic was designed to showcase.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's mostly what I have to say. I can't really get much more into commentary because I don't think right now
I
there's
don't
much.
like the faces.
The faces.
I don't like faces. Like just here. It looks like he has like a plastic layer over his face that is chipped and cracked.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that expressions are really coming
No.
out very well. So on a letter scale, where would you put this?
Letter scale, it's fun, but it's not really deep. But I'll give it a C, mostly for Starfire's bum.
Yeah, I'll give it probably a C minus. I mean, I think it's not so much that it's bad at being what it is, but it's that it is what it is.
Yep.
So you have to either like it and take it at that value, or just read something else.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to criticize it for being too shallow because I don't feel like it's really trying.
No.
And I'm not going to say that's a bad thing.
And it is a fun read.
There are some comics that are just going to be like that. Some I might not. Actually, I do kind of like some of those. Not necessarily this one. C minus. I'm going into the minus area because I think the artwork gets a little bit messy looking for
Not
some
Starfire.
scenes. not just not Starfire, but I think when you're not in the action scenes,
Mhm.
when you just have like people talking, it gets pretty dirty looking. It just kind of falls apart. And moving on. Oh, and also, are you going to keep reading the?
I'd keep reading it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm probably not going to be buying any. See, it's interesting. We bought these as a bundle because we can get them cheaper that way, and then we just decided that.
We'll split them after.
Yeah, and it's like he kept trying. Before we read this, he kept trying to convince me I should be the one who pays for Red Hood and the Outlaws. I should be the one who keeps and pays for Red Hood and the Outlaws. Now he's the one who's going to be reading the
like
next
it.
one.
And,
Moving on.
I like it, for other reasons than Naked Starfire. It's just a fun read, I thought. So,
Birds of Prey.
Birds of Prey now.
Birds of Prey does.
This
have,
is more your territory.
Yeah. Birds of Prey does have a pretty long history. The group of female, I would call them crime fighters, based out of Gotham City, written by the absolutely fantastic Gail Simone. This is not that series.
Nope.
We have, and I'm not saying that as a good thing or a bad thing, but just it's a fact of the matter sort of thing. Naturally, Oracle's out of the picture. Kind of, at least as Oracle, because she now has legs. I don't think we're so much erasing history. It's not clear what's in and what's out, but it's more a matter
Well,
of...
these people are in.
Are they, though? It's a bit more complex than it might seem, as we'll discuss, but we're getting into just sort of a group of rogue women getting put together from scratch over the course of this issue and perhaps later issues. So we're not looking at a continuation of stories from before. Characters, yes. Ideas, maybe, but not story. So we're kind of starting over from scratch here. Summary of the plot.
You do that.
Ah, me.
Yeah.
All right. So, we begin with a reporter for the Gotham Gazette in a church on his knees talking to his informant, saying that he's trying to find out, he's trying to get good solid information on this team of female
The
superheroes,
Birds of
but
Prey.
that's not actually their name, though. That's the interesting thing. I have to wonder if they're going to use that as a name in this, because it's kind of like a Captain Marvel Shazam sort of thing, that the title of the series isn't the same as the characters. But what we...
Or even Watchmen.
yeah,
They're
Watchmen,
not-
I think.
yeah. They're not called the Watchmen.
I've heard people say that, and it's like, what are you talking about? But, where was I? Anyway, and he's
What?
like, but I need solid information about this, these people, and he's like, I will give you some solid information. We see a scope of a sniper rifle pointed at the back of his head. This is on the first page, so I'm not really spoiling anything. And then Black Canary shows up.
And kicks butt.
Yeah, and Black Canary and, who else was it with Black Canary?
Starling.
Starling, yes,
Starling.
that's right. Starling and Black Canary. They show up and they get into a big fight and they fight the people trying to kill him. And then we get some backstory. He's been following them around for a while, how he got there. And it turns out that there's some mysterious person who's been feeding him information, trying to crush the birds of... I'm saying the Birds of Prey. Trying to crush Black Canary and Starling.
Kill two birds with one stone.
Oh! Yeah. And meanwhile, they're trying to find him, and this reporter's just kind of caught in the middle. Also, we get a little bit of backstory. It seems that Black Canary is trying to get some women together to... I'm not sure entirely what she's trying to accomplish, but
She's trying to make a team.
she's trying to put a team together.
And
get
she's
a
having
band
a little
together.
trouble.
Yeah. And I will say it's mostly this big action sequence at the church.
And it is just Canary and Starling right now.
Yeah, that is what I will say, that the most
The cover is
disappointing-
misleading because these people aren't in
the
it.
most disappointing thing, Katana is mentioned in one line. That's about
And
it.
we get a picture.
Yeah, and this lady here,
Nowhere.
there is no indication in the comic to even say who she is, and from the art design I can't even be confident about that, because
I want to say Ivy, but...
it suggests Poison Ivy to me, but then I'm thinking that just makes so little sense that, I don't know, but who knows where this might end up going. But, anyway, but it is mostly this fight scene in the church, fighting these sniper folk, and there's a car, I'm not going to say car chase, but a battle on and inside a car.
There is car.
Yeah, there is car. It's mostly fighting. Impressions, do you want to start?
Yeah. I liked it, but I couldn't exactly follow everything going on at once. um, because we're switching perspectives from the reporter following them around and from Black Canary, her kind of inner monologue, but we are mostly following Black Canary around, and it's just like the interplay of the two narrations. I think it just it's just me. I kind of lost track of who was who, what was what, where they are.
Yeah.
But the church battle, all the scenes that take place in the church, really good. I really enjoyed it. It's all one action scene, but there's a lot of exposition going on, though you might not notice it at first. It's kind of subtle exposition.
It doesn't feel forced at all.
No, it's very good.
Yeah, and I didn't really find it difficult to follow because it does jump around in time a bit, but I mean the time changes are captioned. I don't think that it's that confusing, and I think the plot is it's pretty straightforward. Well, first off, the fact that it's an action scene featuring Black Canary. I really like Black Canary, specifically because of the way she fights. I think that she is a martial artist in almost the purest sense of the word. That
Well, she uses
when
street
you
fighting.
kind of, but that when you get a fight scene featuring Black Canary, you're just going to be getting a lot of. I'm not going to necessarily. That's what you're getting. You're getting a lot of the kicks and the fighting and the. It's not just. I'm not going to say it's like a Hong Kong kung fu movie, but it's that style, and I think it's portrayed very well.
Mm-hmm.
It takes up a lot of space because that's how these kinds of fights are, but I think it works, and I find that very appealing. I think that in terms of character, these ladies, I think, have some attitude, not a... I'm trying to think of if there were any other characters we've seen or run into so far who've had attitude.
A little bit back, maybe Batgirl, maybe
No.
not so much Batgirl.
I think Deathstroke had baditude, but I think the closest it actually makes me think of is Red Hood and the Outlaws.
Yeah.
But it's not
It's not as immature.
it's not as immature, it's not as juvenile. I think it does seem kind of like it's there to say, hey, these ladies are cool,
Mhm.
and I think it is kind of cool. Hang on, like just the sight of Starling driving a car. We don't even need to show it, but she's driving a car. Says, "Hang on, honey." I mean, I think that it's
Yeah.
lines like that. It's again, I don't think that it's the most profound dialogue. Also, I think sometimes that there can be like action dialogue that really is like funny or really does make a really strong impression. I think this is. I'm not going to say it's coasting, but it seems more like a bit nondescript. It's laying the seeds for characterization, though. But as I said, it's mostly fighting.
Mhm.
And I think that in terms of story, it really is a self-contained story. It's about fighting this guy. Well, not fighting this guy, but saving this guy and fighting this enemy, which is what most of the issue's about. But I think it's at the same time
We're left wondering a lot.
we're wondering a lot. And besides like cliffhanger or anything like that, I think the question of who is behind all of this is enough to make me want to keep reading.
Mhm.
So I really enjoyed this. Some of that is personal preference, but I think that also for the kind of comic that this is, again, not comparing it to anything that's come before necessarily, I think that it's worked pretty well. And we want to talk about art a little bit. I think I kind of did with regards to the fight sequences, because that's what I think this does really well.
The fight sequences they're not as brutal as Wonder Woman, but
I wouldn't say they're brutal at all. I think they're very graceful.
well, graceful. But you kind of feel like each hit is done in a way that you know that it hurts the person getting hit. I guess.
Yeah, I think we're showing.
It's very physical. Do you think?
It's physical. I think it's graceful, though. I think it's like
Yeah.
And I think that also just keep
Something I
going.
want to talk about, and I think you do too, is that Black Canary.
I'll get to her costume in a little bit.
Okay.
Just finish talking about the
Yeah.
design. Do you have anything else you want to say?
No,
about
I
that?
was going to talk about the costume. You go.
Yeah, no, I just want to say also I just think that overall we have this really sort of a clean, smooth style for
Mhm.
everything, almost the opposite of Red Hood and the Outlaws that we just looked at. The sort of art style that we get on pretty much everything here is very very sleek.
Yep.
But I think it works for this kind of a martial arts extended action sequence. So I approve, and
Yeah.
I really enjoy it. Now let's talk about Black Canary's costume, something that I
So-
have been complaining about for months.
Yeah, Black Canary, her style of fighting is very fluid, very graceful, all those words you used. But she's wearing a big plate armor type dealio And even though she does wear this, she still is as fluid and graceful as she should be. But because she's wearing the armor, it doesn't really seem like she should be that graceful anymore.
Yeah, I have to wonder because we have.
It's kind of the same thing as Batwoman, not Batwoman, Batgirl, in that her design is very armored, and it doesn't look like she'd be able to move in the ways that she does, but she still does.
Yeah, I know. There's been a lot of talk about some redesigns on characters. Black Canary has undergone. She's undergone a major redesign in the past, getting into her sort of leather biker outfit. But now she's moving beyond that into this sort of almost an armor. It's like just from the top. She's still wearing fishnet pattern. She's not wearing fishnets, but fishnet patterned tights, which I think that's a very good addition. But at the same time, just this really bulky chest piece, I don't think is really adding anything. For her fighting style, I actually think the leather one piece and jacket, which she can remove, makes a lot of sense because it will provide optimal padding, but at the same time, as much movement and free motion as possible. I will say, within the book, it's not as bad as it seemed on the cover. The cover, I think, makes it look particularly terrible. But at the same time, since I do really like Black Canary when she fights, and I think that the fighting sequences are drawn well enough that I can believe that she can move in this outfit, and that it might not be as fixed and solid as it might seem on the cover. Although at the same time, I do think her old outfits are a bit
better,
just a bit more sensible in terms of movement. Not that I think stylistically it's bad. I think stylistically it still fits Black Canary. More so inside than on the cover. The cover does. I don't think the cover is a pretty good representation of the way either of these characters is
the
drawn.
cover doesn't have enough movement, I guess, to really show.
I think that a bit of the costumes seem off model, and also two people are on the cover who don't appear at all in the comics. So
not a good cover.
Not a good cover, but a good comic. Where would you put this on a letter scale?
I think what did I give Red Hood? I mean,
I think you gave it a C.
I'll give this one a C too.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a B because it's mostly fighting, but I think the fighting is done exceptionally well.
Yeah.
So
C+.
I'm giving it a B. I'm definitely continuing with this.
Okay.
Again, and I'm going to say just one more time that both of these we are looking at as single individual comics, not as continuations of these characters necessarily before. We could do a whole thing when we're done, just looking at changes in characterization, that sort of thing. But for now,
we'll stick with it
as a standalone and as part of an arc.
So next up, what do you want to do?
Next up, what do we want to do? I think we have 4 comics left.
No, we have 6.
We have 6 left. All right.
I'm voting. I think we should do DC Universe Presents.
DC Universe Presents, I think, is a wonderful idea.
And Catwoman.
And Catwoman.
Yeah.
Wow.
He was hairy as hell. He had like a beard.
And he was hairy as hell, and he had like a beard and shit. I hope that wasn't me. Next up, DC Universe Presents and Catwoman.